So I made it to Dresden, and as I promised, I'm going to continue the vibrato discussion here. And we're going to move now to equalizing the vibrato between the four fingers of the left hand. And in order to be able to hear the oscillations even more clearly, I'm going to put the practice mute on the cello. This actually makes it a little drier and softer sounding, and it's easier to hear the detail in the sound, especially in a small room like this hotel room. And the first thing we're going to do is pick a good finger, let's say maybe the first finger, and just to experiment how wide we want to go. Remember, we were talking about as much as a half step for some of the great singers, but it's not too practical for the cello. Maybe a good quarter tone above and below. Challenge is to make exactly that sound on each finger. So for the fourth, for example, because it's smaller, I have to use a little bit more arm. Third, because it's quite wide, I don't have to use so much. So the goal eventually is for you not to have to think about this while you're playing, but that your arm becomes conditioned to reacting naturally to what finger you're on. If you want a consistent sound, your arm just does it. I've done this exercise so much that I probably will make it look rather easy. I know it's not going to be so simple for those of you who haven't thought of this, but believe me, it's a very, very useful thing to do. This seems maybe very mechanical and like it has nothing to do with music, but you know, we talked about having all the colors on your palette with which to work, and so I guess it's a mechanical thing for the painter to go down to the paint store and buy tubes of paint. This is exactly what we're doing. We're setting you up with all the tools to make art. So, after we figured out how to do the same width on each finger, now we're going to do with a metronome. And this one is set now to 70. That's a pretty good number. And as we talked about before, we're always going to measure 4 oscillations per beat, 4 round trips to the upper side of the note. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the idea is to switch finger. Same speed, same width. That's all there is to that exercise. Even if you try to make it exactly the same on each finger, each one is going to sound a little different. They have different bone structure, different widths. It's never going to be absolutely exactly the same, but you can get it quite close. And I would suggest using different metronome numbers eventually, and also eventually moving right through perhaps a scale. Because every position that you put your hand in, whether it's back here in half position, whether you're going up into thumb position, is going to feel different. You should do these exercises in the upper positions with 1, 2, and 3, or 4 if you want. In half position, where you're only ever going to use the first finger, but still that vibrato should correspond, let's say, between this note Now with this very slow speed, this is likely slower than you're actually going to vibrate in real life, but it allows you to actually count the oscillations. So it's a double exercise. It's for listening to the width to make sure you have consistent width so that people actually don't know what finger you're using. And also to begin to develop the ability to have the same speed. And you'll notice that all fingers don't necessarily want to move the same speed. You have to train your arm to do that if you want a consistent vibrato. And in the next talk, from wherever I can make it, we'll talk about how to vary the speed and exercises to change the speed, keeping the same width. See you probably in Denmark.